Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Innovation Coffee live stream brought to you by ARM. I'm your host, Robert Wolf, and we have quite the exciting episode for you all this week. Today, we are going to be meeting with Richard Elberger, IoT Principal Technologist at Amazon Web Services, to talk about some of the exciting announcements that came out of their recent event, AWS Reinvent. You've heard all about this event, I'm sure. Every year, developers and some of the biggest names in tech meet for this 5-day event, which traditionally takes place in Las Vegas. This year happened to be the event's 10th anniversary. That's a long time for an event to go, I gotta say. I mean, like, there aren't a lot of events out there that go for this long, and it seems to just keep going. And so that being said, there were a lot of announcements, and one of those announcements was for the AWS IoT Express Link. If you haven't already heard about that, that's today's primary topic of discussion. So we are joined by the specialist, the expert on this, Richard Elberger. And I think it's time to bring Richard into the stream. Hello, Richard. Hi, how are you?
Hey again. Glad to be here.
Hi, great. Awesome. Yeah. So usually what we do here at the very beginning, and you were on the show one time before, and what was it that you were talking about last time you were here?
Yes, heterogeneous multi-core topologies. So
heterogeneous.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
That's a mouthful, eh? Yeah.
It is a mouthful.
So working with those application cores and the microprocessor profile cores, so together with embedded Linux.
Something's going on with my screen over here. I'm watching you. It looks like you're catching up now, but it looked like your video was taking time to catch up there. But we're all good now. So So Richard, thank you for joining us again. Then this is great to have you here for a second time. And today we're going to be talking about the AWS IoT Express Link. But before we dive into that, there might be some people who didn't get to watch you on the last episode, and maybe our famous wizard behind the curtains here, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind sharing last week's episode, or the last time Richard was on with us in the chat, that would be nice. So viewers can go watch him last time he was here. But Richard, for those who don't know you, who aren't familiar with you, tell us who you are, what you do for AWS, the things that you enjoy about the tech world, anything you'd like to share with us personally about yourself.
You know, it's just so awesome working at AWS, being able to talk about IoT technology. I've been doing this for years now. I get to work with all the newest embedded technologies from ARM, get to work with semiconductor companies like NXP, STMicro, and so forth, Infineon. And it's just a blast. Every day is a blast.
Very nice. That's awesome. So we have a segment that we like to do with our guests, kind of a bit of an icebreaker round. We call it Innovation Coffee Cribs. And I'm told you have some cool stuff on your desk to share with us. So let's cue up Innovation Coffee Cribs. All right, Richard, what's some cool stuff you have on your desk? And then I'll share something I have on my desk too.
All right, cool. So I have a few things to share with you guys today. The first one's the old standby, right, that I use for a lot of my day-to-day development for microprocessors. It's the STM32F746 discovery board. Do you see it there?
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just it's a nice F7. Also, the new Imx Rt1060 from NXP. So we just launched a new free RTOS reference distribution for this on the Amazon Free RTOS repository on GitHub. Oh, sorry, mixed up the boards. That was this board. This is the Rt1060. Sorry, this is the new. Last time on Innovation Coffee, I talked about the AM64XX board, and it was much larger, right? The board itself is much larger, but they just came out with a newer, smaller form factor. It's the AI board. So this is what's on my desk for working at the application processor level. I have a really cool automotive processor that I just pulled out again for another project. It's the AG550Q from Quectel. So it's an automotive grade 5G module. And then finally, I'm back on the Korea, right? So this is from Xilinx. So those are the things that are on my desk right now, besides, of course, AWS IoT Express Link.
Ooh, nice. And we're going to get to talk a lot about the IoT Express Link. So I said I would share something on my desk. Chips and Valentina sauce.
Okay, essentials, man. That's
And
great.
I tricked you, right? That was a twist. I really like hot sauce, so I keep chips and hot sauce around. All right, cool. Thank you for doing that, Richard. Really appreciate you sharing that cool hardware and the stuff you're working with there. So let's dive into our main segment. And in fact, slightly before the main segment, possibly kind of like a prequel to the main segment, which is AWS reInvent. I mean, 10 years running. This is a massive event. I'm actually curious. You said you were there in person?
That's right. So I had a few things going on at reInvent, but after the hiatus that we had over the last couple of years from reInvent, we did have a virtual reInvent last year. It was just really great to get back with customers and partners at a live event. More than 25,000 people. That's my understanding. Packed full of content. It was just awesome fun.
And so, I'm curious, right? Because I have talked to some folks. We've done like interviews with some folks, throwbacks to certain events that have happened this year and towards the latter half of last year. Like MWC earlier this year, they usually get, I think it's like 100,000 people, but this year they got like 20,000 people or something like that. I mean, how was it received? Did you end up getting the same 25,000 people? I'm not sure how many people usually go to reInvent.
So my understanding, the one prior that was live, we had more than 65,000. That's the number. That's my understanding. This year, more than 25,000. It was scaled back a bit for the obvious reasons.
Of course.
And also, international travel is still a little bit dicey. So, yeah, it was just really, everyone was there. Everyone was being safe. And it was just a lot of fun.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to hear about these events coming back. Be safe, everyone. Respect your neighbor. Respect your fellow humans. And one day we'll all be back enjoying the fruits of these live events. And so, I'm really happy to see that AWS Amazon went through with making sure this event was live. Let's talk about some announcements, and let's use this as a segue point. So. Okay. There were so many announcements, and you all know me, I'm focused on the infrastructure, cloud to edge stuff. We're not going to talk about all these announcements in depth. We're going to lead our way into the AWS IoT Express Link, but maybe there were a few other announcements that you enjoyed, Richard. Would you mind kind of sharing a couple other ones as we lead our way into the Express Link?
Yeah, so I have a few tabs up here that I can share with people that really the major announcements from AWS IoT. The first is Twin Maker, digital twins, massive preview launch that we did at reInvent. If you're into industrial, you've got to check this out. It's really a huge step forward. The next one I'd like to talk about is AWS IoT FleetWise in preview. This is another massive launch for all of our automotive customers out there to be able to get the automotive telematics up into the cloud and do really awesome things with it. And of course, last but definitely not least is AWS IoT Express Link. That's what we're talking about today. That's in preview, and we have working code that I'm going to show today.
Very cool. Yes, that's awesome. All right. And yeah, you heard him. We have some demos, in fact, some cool looking demos for this. So let's dive right in then. And before we dive in, let me remind everyone here real quick. So this is an open forum, right? Like, you're all joining us on YouTube. Feel free to post questions in the chat. If you have questions for Richard, if you have questions for myself, we are watching that chat as much as we can. So please feel free to post questions. Also, if you do enjoy what you're watching, hit that like button. It helps us out a lot. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so back to this AWS IoT Express Link. I think the first thing we want to talk about is high level. What is it? What was the announcement about? What is IoT Express Link, and what are some of the core features?
Yeah, so I do have a few slides to help us out with this. And really what an Express Link is an all-in-one module to help you do AWS IoT telematics, right? So all the busy work of getting a connection, getting it done securely, and publishing and subscribing to topics up in AWS IoT Core. It really reduces a lot of the stuff that you need to do on the application or host processor to get this work done. I mean, in the early days, it really was, in the really early days, I mean, people even struggled with, I got to get my certificate ready. I need to get my private key ready. I need to understand the endpoint, all this kind of stuff. With AWS IoT Express Link, all that busy work detail, you don't have to put in a script. You don't have to worry about like the software supply chain, all that kind of stuff like SDKs and that sort of thing. It's all put on a module ready to go.
Did I lose you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
For some
I
reason,
was ready for that.
I'm trying to troubleshoot this here, but for some reason, it looks like your audio and your video are slightly off. Your video is delayed. I'm just checking with
Okay.
our producer here to see if there's an issue or if it's
Interesting.
just me. But
Or
yeah,
me. Yeah.
or you. Yeah. But that's cool. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. So yeah, so really, if I take a look at this diagram here, when we did development in the past with AWS IoT, without AWS IoT Express Link, we had to get ready for all this stuff and just connect the radio hardware. If you had a secure element, you had to wire all that up yourself, deal with all the integration details. You had to get together your IoT library, all that other stuff. But now with AWS IoT Express Link, all you have to worry about is your application. This is all pre-provisioned for you by the person that's the entity that's giving you the module. And so today I'll be talking about the Infineon module. Infineon presents to you everything totally prepackaged. They do the firmware on the Express Link itself, and you just integrate it into your application. Really easy.
So this module, maybe you mentioned it already, and I just didn't hear it, but it's a module that plugs into another device, or is this a fully functioning piece of hardware that you're using?
Yeah, so it is. I'm just going to pull it out real quick.
Okay.
So if you look at a module like this, hopefully the green screen doesn't mess it up too much, but this shiny stuff that's happening right there, it's just that little footprint. That's a Wi-Fi module there, right? So you need to pair a Wi-Fi module with your compute. And the compute is where you build your application, right?
Okay.
All the code to deal with the AWS cloud is on the module itself, the radio. That's it.
Okay, so you can add that module to anything. You can add it to a Raspberry Pi.
That's right. So any of those boards that I showed you at the beginning, except probably the QuickTel one, any of those boards you could add the module to in your design in. It's really great for gateways too, where maybe your design already has Ethernet, you're working on the local network, and you just want to do simple telematics to the cloud. Just add this module and you can just get started.
Excellent. Yeah, are you? I'm guessing you're working with companies to get this more, I want to say, readily accepted on a variety of hardware platforms.
Yep.
Now, I like seeing things like this happen in the industry, right? Because I'm a huge advocate for standardizations. And I feel that this is kind of like that convergence point when you get the software developers and the hardware developers working together. The standards become more robust and solid. And so AWS bringing in this Express Link, it just makes sense, right? Like, we're already seeing so many devices in the IoT space and the edge space being tied into the cloud. Now AWS providing developers and even end users in a way, the ability to just connect seamlessly out of the box in a way. I think that's just awesome.
Yeah, so it was really a challenge for integrators in the past. We would always get the question, will AWS work with this device that I have or this module that I have? And now there's no question. We created some software, the Express Link. It has a standard AT interface, totally easy. You work with it over serial, totally easy. And actually, the semiconductor company owns the firmware, right? So they're taking the firmware, they're building in the SDK, they're wrapping this all up with their secret sauce, right? Secret meaning every module maker has their value add, right? So this really puts the focus back on the module maker for the special value that they're building into their module, and just makes connecting to AWS IoT a no-brainer.
All right. Well, that covers the question. What makes, or what does, how does AWS ExpressLink make life easier for developers and integrators? I mean, it just works, right? Like for the
That's
most
right.
part. Yeah. So let's look at some use cases. What are some of the use cases that you've seen so far, or that maybe I know it's only been like what, a week, a few weeks, but what are some use cases maybe that some of the engineers have been working with?
Yeah. So it's it's really open, but we're seeing use cases across connected home, agriculture, industrial, and so forth. Anything where I just need to send telematics, right? And when we get enough bring in sometime in the future, we should have an automotive grade module, then in vehicles, right? Where vehicle telematics, when we talk about telematics boxes, it just becomes super easy for them to integrate this into the vehicle to send telematics to the cloud. So you do have these cases, like for example, in agriculture, I just want to, for shelves full of plants that I need to get temperature, humidity, moisture, all those readings, I don't need like a big fancy box to do that. I'm just sending a little bit of data every so often. And why do I need to learn all this SDK stuff to make that happen, right? I should be able to just say, send data, send data, send data, totally easy.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I can already imagine, right? Like when you're talking about a module that connects devices, IoT devices to a cloud. I mean, I can't not think of a use case.
That's right.
If that makes sense. I mean, like,
that's
like everything is a use
hmm.
case. Just point me to the vertical and I'll give you 100 use cases. But yeah, so very cool. Now let's talk about the radios. Which radios do you support?
Yeah, so today we have Wi-Fi and cellular, but it's just going to be natural that those use cases are going to grow. But today out of the box, we have Wi-Fi and cellular, and I'll be showing you Wi-Fi today.
Excellent. So we have some questions that have popped up here on the chat. I'm trying to kind of follow along here. This one was when we were talking about reInvent, so I'm gonna just kind of throw back this one real quick. It says from Hibonics, Richard, are there any online events for those who do not travel? Do you know of any AWS events that are coming up, or?
Not that is. I feel kind of bad, but I actually don't know off the top of my head. But usually, what we have is, if you go to like the development and architecture site on AWS, all of the events that will be going on will be posted there. We usually do have like live streams and that sort of thing happening all the time.
Yeah, actually, Hibonics. If you like watching live streams, I'll tell you right now, AWS has a, excuse my language, freaking amazing Twitch channel. I mean, they go live all the time there. I don't know how they keep up. The only logical explanation I can come up with is that they just have like 50 people who want to stream, and people go on there and just like they all have access and they just go stream when they want. And because I mean, they're streaming like multiple times a day sometimes, doing certification tutorials and all sorts of cool stuff.
The serverless and containers teams are just amazing at doing that.
And so I just pulled this up, AWS Events. I'm going to share this in here. I think I have permissions. AWS Events, I shared it on my personal tag right there in the chat, where you can find AWS Events and webinars. Here's another question from Bruno Verachtin. Where can I get one? The module.
Yeah, so good question. You can go to devices.amazonaws.com and just search for ExpressLink. And so you'll get all the current ExpressLink devices there. And of course, the one that I'm showing today, which is the Infineon one.
Excellent. So then there's two other questions from Bruno as well here, and we just shared that link that Richard said right there. Two other questions. I'm going to put these together. Number one, how does it connect? And number two, GPIO question mark, or do we have to design a PCB to host it?
Wow, we're really getting into like where the rest of the talk, but let's just go with this. So really, it's it's just over serials. So the minimum that you need is an RX, TX, and ground between the module and the host processor. But there are other pins as well to play with, because you can put the module into sleep mode to bring it. There's also an interrupt pin as well to do whatever kinds of things that you need to do with the host processor, bring it out of deep sleep mode, let it know that it needs to get some message from the Express Link itself, and so forth. So there's a few other pins to work with for sleep and interrupts, but the RX, TX, and ground are the main ones. And then, of course, you would have to allocate GPIOs for the.
And we lost Richard. I think what was happening there is his camera froze, and so now I'm here all alone. I'm pretty sure we'll get him back in just a moment, but I guess for the meantime, what I can do is comb through some of the other amazing events. And what I'm going to do is I wasn't prepared for this, so I'm going to send this over while we wait for Richard to come in here. I have a really cool run through of some of the announcements that happened this last couple weeks at reInvent. So let's see if I can get this sent over to myself on this computer before Richard gets back. And we're going to send that to SD Robert, and then I can pull that up. So every month, what we do in the infrastructure line of business where I'm part of is we send out what's called the Neoverse newsletter. And I didn't get to it in time. Richard's back. Richard, how's it going?
And I mean, I just like got whipped out into some.
Yeah, I noticed that your computer, your camera froze, and so I was going to ask you to reset your camera, but yeah.
So where did I leave off? I'm really sorry about that. What happened?
No, that's all right. We were talking about the GPIO. Is there a GPIO or do you have to design a PCB to host it? And you were talking about the pins. Oh my gosh, did my camera freeze now? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, your camera did freeze. So
Okay.
we're back at it again. Yeah. So look, I did just talk about all that, but I was talking to myself, and all you need minimum is an RX, TX, and a ground. And of course, if you want to do other things like put the module into sleep mode, or if you want to have an interrupt between the module and the host processor, then you need to allocate GPIOs for those, right? But really, the minimum you need is RX, TX, and ground.
Okay. So then, hope that answers your question there, Bruno. This is the last one here from him before we can go to the next one. Is there an ARM SoC within it, system on chip within it, or does it run Linux?
So these modules are standard is running FreeRTOS in it. It's a microcontroller ARM-based core. So okay. These are not like, so just to make it clear what an ExpressLink is, it's an all-in-one package. It's not something that you as an application developer goes in and modifies or loads more code. So what's expected is that you have the module and a host processor, and the host processor has your application code.
And I think this answers the next question. Does this reduce the amount of code the developer needs to write? And I'd say yes, because it's already written for you in the module.
That's right. So I think I kind of expressed that with the slide I was showing before, where most of like everything in the SDK, all the SDK work, all the IoT library work that you need to do, all of the hardware security stuff, all of the TLS work that you would need to do is all pushed up into the module. So you don't need to deal with that at all at the host processor any longer. Okay, perfect.
So the last question I think I have for this core feature segment of the IoT Express Link is, I think this reduces the amount of software developer needs to load on the IoT device, like reducing the software supply chain issues.
Absolutely. So it's not, some people would call it offloading, But what we're doing is that we're putting the curation of the software where it's best placed. The hardware manufacturer really will know really well what gels with their hardware and any tweaks that they would need to make it be the most optimized as possible for that particular module. And before, developers had to figure that all out themselves, right?
Yeah. Okay. So the next part of this segment is called AWS IoT Express Link Network Commissioning for Developers. And because I got this all listed out here. So the question here, and this leads into a slide plus a demo, is how do you get connected to the network if all the code is on the module?
That's right.
And it looks like the main question here is, can you show us after you tell us? Or while you tell us.
That's right. So I have this slide here. Look, you really need, on the Wi-Fi specifically, you need to run 2 AT commands. It's just like so easy. It's like, you create a serial connection between the host processor and the Express Link, and you configure the SSID, and you configure the passphrase, and then you're ready to rock from a Wi-Fi perspective, right? And so what I've done is that I just wrote a little script here, if I can bring up my little Emacs cheat sheet. And before this the show, I actually did a full factory reset on this device. So I'm doing everything live.
Is there any way to make that text a little bigger for the terminal?
This is just my cheat sheet, actually.
Oh, your cheat sheet. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if everyone wants to see my cheat sheet, that's great. You can see it's my Emacs scratch buffer. But I'm just going to go back over here to my console and paste that in. And if I look over here at the video, there's my Express Link with my little Cloud Ninja. And what I'm going to do, this little script will connect to the module and write these values. And it should just work. And of course, it didn't. Let me, you know why? Because there it goes. All right. So it's just a little script. And what is that code? It's like so easy. It's like, it's crazy. I'm running 2 serial commands. This I can pump up. 2 serial commands. One is for saying the SSID and the other is for the passphrase. And I have a library that has like the full text of these commands running, but just imagine like what you would have to do to commission a device otherwise, right? Now, what's kind of different about this Infineon module is that they do have a special setup routine. They have a little BLE module on here where you can scan the module and you can set it up through your phone if you want to, but as a developer, we would just want to do it through a script, right? Super easy coding, 2 commands. So that's it. And then if you want, we can just, if there's no questions, we can actually move right on to the next phase too.
Well, a question did come up here.
Yeah, awesome.
So from Tim Madison, he's asking, could you use this board with a computer that has RS-232 if you wanted to kick the tires without getting into embedded development right away?
Well, thanks, Tim. I think that you can totally do that. So, but really, you just need to just build that serial connection. So, do you mean if you want to connect using like Picocom or Minicom or something like that? I think that's what he's asking. So, coincidentally, I do have that up, and I can just create a serial connection here, and I can just talk to it directly and say, "Oh, are you there?" Oops. Oh no, what happened? Well, it should say AK, probably because I did the wrong command. So we have a command set that's documented, it's all online, and I just put a question mark for a query and I didn't need to do that. So if I wanted to set like the network from the serial terminal here, I could totally do that.
Excellent. All right. Yeah. And it looks like Dara also commented on Tim's question saying, I guess you could, Tim, set up a 2-way communication over UART.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then Dara also brought up a comment here / question is I'd be very interested to know if there is a future generation of AT commands as it isn't very developer friendly. I can't comment on that. I don't know if you can.
So I'm not entirely sure what is the AT command not developer friendly, or is it? Okay, so I know that for people who are not used to AT commands, I feel you, and so I I have started a library, so to speak, to make it simpler. You saw some of that in the Python code that I was showing you, but right now AT commands over serial is what we have, and we have all the documentation available for that as well.
Awesome.
I don't know if I answered the question. So
I think you did. You did it. You did as well as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, let's bring it into the next section here. And it is AWS IoT Express Link endpoint and credential provisioning for developers. So, what about authentication? That's the question.
Yeah. So
how do developers get connected and authenticated?
It's just, again, too easy. So I said at the beginning that this module is pre-provisioned, right? So all these things that you had to decide before, like thing name, creating the certificate, having the private key, all that kind of stuff, all that is pre-provisioned in the module. But as a developer, you need to actually register that stuff up in AWS IoT Core, right? In order to get that connection. And again, it's really simple. You can do 2 queries, right? Which is, and you see the AT command syntax that I have there. Do a query for the thing name that's burnt into the module. Do a query for the certificate that's burnt into the module. And then you also have to set the AWS IoT endpoint, right? That you're going to talk to up in the AWS IoT cloud. And then register all these things with the cloud. Now, if you do it manually, it can be maybe, it's going to be a lot easier when you do things in production, right? But as a developer, you need to register all these things manually. I did write a little Python script to help me out with this. And I can just show you that right now, where the Python script is actually running these 2 commands, setting the endpoint automatically over the serial connection, and then registering all these components. All right. So if I go back over to the terminal in my little cheat sheet here, I can go back here and I have this XP link provision run, because what I did is that I have a dry run mode to see, like, it will tell you, oh, your certificate's already provisioned, right? So it will do a dry run mode for you, but this is just going to run it straight. And I'm totally into live demos, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers, but it should just run. And so it's actually going to take the certificate from the device. It wasn't found. It's provisioning everything up in the cloud. Done. Everything's provisioned. We're ready to go.
That was quick.
That's how long it took. It's just like so easy now. And of course, if you're doing this manually, like going back to this, the query is just simple. So I do an AT plus comp $certificate, and there's my client certificate. Certificate is all public knowledge, right? It's not giving you the private key. Everything is saved in a secure element on the module, right? Everything is secured. So, but the certificate I take and I propagate up into the cloud, and now I can just authenticate.
Excellent.
Totally easy.
Very cool. So how about that? How about that? You all watching? What do you think?
It's just
pretty
2
cool.
seconds connected, right? It's just yeah.
Very nice. So yeah, let's go on to the next one then.
Yeah, sure.
We covered it.
So if I go on to the next slide, it gets a little bit more interesting here, right? So now I have my access point, and I'm going to ultimately connect to AWS IoT Core with the Express Link. What the Express Link team did is that they're all like hardcore embedded engineers, right? So they actually designed this for both microcontrollers and microprocessors, and they made it so it reduces the amount of information that needs to be transmitted over the UART. So for example, when I'm sending to a topic, I don't need to tell the ExpressLink module every single time the full topic that I need to publish to. there's a shorthand for doing that. So you actually set topics that you want to publish to, and then you reuse that when you send your publishing, your send commands, which publishes up to the AWS cloud for every single invocation. So it reduces the number of bytes. I mean, if you're used to embedded development, you can kind of think about all the clock cycles that would steal from the microcontroller for just sending additional characters over the wire. So we were very, very, well, the ExpressLink team just did an awesome job at making sure that it was really tailored towards the embedded developer. So in this case, I'm showing a couple of different topics. The demo is only using one. It configures a topic, it sends, it subscribes, so I get information back down to the host. Now, what I did configure before this, because I didn't want to do this part live, because it gets a little bit tedious and for people, is that I did set up a number of topics beforehand, okay, to listen to when this thing is going live. These topics at the top, you know, it's interesting to me how many people, maybe we don't talk about it enough, but we have these things called lifecycle topics, which is just amazing to use for debugging when working with the AWS cloud. And so I've set up lifecycle topics here for when the device connects, when it disconnects, when I subscribe to a topic, and when I unsubscribe. So when the Express Link is doing all this kind of work, you're going to see messages come through these topics. And then finally, the topic at the bottom, you're going to say, hey, that topic doesn't look like what I'm going to do in the demo, right? But what's also another trick that the ExpressLink developers did is that they made it so you have a topic root. So if you want to make the topic root by default, it's your device's thing name, and that's what they've done here, right? What Infineon did. So they out of the box made your topic root to be the thing name. So the topic that every single device the topic that every device out in the field will send to is a different topic. And that's really the kind of way that you want to do it. So you don't end up with big globs of messages going into one big topic. It's a best practice for topic organization. So look, I organized that stuff. This is what we're going to do. And why don't we just give it a shot and run the demo, all right?
Let me go sacrifice this goat real quick. We're good. We're good.
So let's, I have another little trick. Now, look, one thing I did here in the script, I shouldn't even have to tell it like what device I'm going to, and this is an enhancement I'm going to make to the script, but I should be able to just give me the first ExpressLink device I have connected to my machine and just send it to that, right? So I did that, and then in hindsight, I was like, oh shoot, I should have just made it so it was easier. But this is the way it is now. What this code is actually doing is, I stole the baseline from this code actually from the AWS IoT device SDK for Python v2. All right, so this is a device SDK where that we give to our customers wanting to run Python code on their embedded devices. When I changed it, the code reduction was like 95%.
Wow. Wow.
It was just insane. So so I'm doing the same thing, but that was the amount of code reduction. So let's give it a shot. Now you have to understand we're in preview still, so sometimes the subscription stuff gets a little bit silly, but it should just work. So I'm going to bring up, now as this starts happening, you're going to see these things on the left-hand side over there start light up. And let's hope that it just works, because I'm doing this all live. So it's connecting, subscribing, it's publishing. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh, there we go. It's lighting up. So there was a little bit of latency in making that happen. But now it's publishing. We should see things coming up over here. So it's publishing to this topic over here. You see it's coming across, right? Now what's cool is that if I go over here to the lifecycle topic, it actually says that it connected from this client ID, which is coming from the module, right? What's great too is that in this debugging, I can say, oh yeah, this subscribed, right? This is the topic that was subscribed as well. So it works fine. And of course you see the messages come across.
Excellent.
Now, when I look at the code for that, it's so easy that it's almost underwhelming to look at. So I can go to PubSub. I have this little script here. And let me pump this up a little bit. Now, you see all these things. This is like the library I wrote, and I have every single import. So it's like the lines of code there look a little bit more than what it should be. Oops. And then all this argument code. But the bulk of the code that we're running, we have a few serial commands here. And then we have a few serial commands here, right? Now, what you see here is this is the first connect one here, right? So this is what's needed to connect to the cloud. This one line right here. And then I query for the connect just to show that it's connected. That's another line. Am I really connected to the cloud? Okay, it's just easy. Okay, so I want to set my topic. So I'm using the default value for args.topic that's coming in, and so that's like the test topic or wherever it's named. And then I'm going to subscribe. So subscribing to a topic alone with the callback is like 20 or 30 lines of code in the device SDK, right? So one line to subscribe. One line. And then I go down here and it's like, okay, let me publish. So that's just a send command. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. The Express Link actually has an event model. So I can listen to the Express Link when an event came in. Now there's other diagnostic things that, a lot of bad things can happen, right? Like get disconnected, the access point could go down, so things aren't working. So you can parse these events that come across the Express Link as well when bad things happen. I don't have all those conditions in here, but what I'm just checking for here is, am I getting an event that I'm just ripping through all the events actually. It's kind of dumb. And when I hear an event come across, then I just see how many getting the message off the topic that I'm subscribed to, right? That's it. So it's just one get command to get the latest one. Now, what's going to happen is, well, what happens if the host doesn't do that get command and another message comes in? Well, those messages are actually queued up. It's implementation defined based on the module maker, but those events will just queue up in the module. So if your host gets really busy and can't do a get at the exact right time, that's okay. You can go back to the module and get all those messages that are queued up, right? It's totally, so it'll do all that work for you. And I'm sure those who have done work with the IoT, you have lots of funky stuff happening, sometimes missed messages, or it's really, really challenging to get these callbacks right with all the right try catch blocks, all the exceptions, getting that right to make sure that you're recovering from these scenarios. But actually, all those best practices around connectivity, publishing, subscribing, just like what I had here, all of that error handling and stuff like that, all those best practices that we had to go to every single customer and help them with all these different kinds of edge cases, because a lot of things can go wrong in the Wild West of IoT. But all these best practices that we've built up over the years, they're now built into the Express Link module.
Very nice. Wow. I mean, what do you all think? Everyone watching here. I mean, I think this is pretty impressive. I think anytime you end up reducing the developer time needed, code needed, I think it's just all great stuff. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Talking about turning, 95% less code out. When you were starting that sentence, I was like, he's going to say like 20% or 30%, but 95%, it's crazy. That's cool. So I want to remind everyone, we're coming up on the top of the hour, I should say the latter end of this hour. And if you have any questions left for Richard, please feel free to post those so we can get those answered. We have a couple more things to discuss here before it ends. But if you do have any questions based on the stuff that he's been showing us, get those in now. So here we are. We just went through this publish and subscribe demo. Was there anything else you wanted to cover here around this particular demo, or should we move on to the next section here?
It's just so easy. Things that we can really look forward to that I can't really cover today because of time or whatnot. It's really two things. I think that the first is shadow handling, right? So definitely we were able to do shadow with the device today by subscribing to all the different and publishing to all the required topics for device shadow. But what you can tell by the documentation for the ExpressLink Programmer's Manual is that we're working towards making shadow a first-class citizen within ExpressLink. So device shadow is this really awesome capability in AWS IoT Core that allows you to do command and control, right? So when your device is offline, you can go back up to the cloud and see what the expected state of your device, where it should be in terms of settings or actuation or whatnot, right? So when you think of products out there that run on AWS, that's like turn the light on, turn the light off, that kind of stuff, where we have device state, that's device shadows. So people want that. The other thing is the elephant in the room is actually over-the-air updates, right? So this is the really cool thing that I love talking about. And you're like, well, shoot, this module, it's not part of the host processor. How am I going to do OTAs? And actually what you're going to find is that there's two OTAs for ExpressLink. The first OTA is for the module itself, right? For the ExpressLink module itself. And actually, you have control over when that OTA happens. But that OTA is going to be delivered by the manufacturer of the module, right? Because all of that software handling that's happening in the module, that's being delivered by the module manufacturer. So when there's an update for that firmware, the module maker will provide that for you, but you have control over when your devices, when your applications actually take that firmware. The second OTA is host level OTA, and ExpressLink supports that as well, right? So when you want to update your host processor, either it's a microcontroller or microprocessor, if you're triggering, for example, if you're running this module on an embedded Linux device and you want to do SW update or Mender or what have you to trigger the update on your embedded Linux device, you'll be able to do that with ExpressLink. Same thing. So all that capability will be really built in.
So I don't know if we said that's awesome. By the way, I don't know if at the very beginning we even said what I'm sure you all know what OTA means, but I'm gonna say it anyways over the air. Any of you that were rushing to Google search and typing in that acronym, hopefully we covered that, because OTA was said a lot. I don't know if we even said what it stands for, but over the air. I'm sure all of you already know that, but just to cover it. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, over the air updates is huge, especially when you get into the IoT space. You're talking about having possibly thousands of devices out there. You can't necessarily go plug into each one of them and update, right? When needed, when there's any sort of security vulnerabilities or just necessary updates that need to go onto a device. So I think OTA is necessary when you talk about IoT.
Yeah, and what's really great is when you're doing the the host level, like you have control over the host level as well when that happens. So that integrates with or AWS IoT fleet management. So you develop jobs go out to entire fleets of devices, but even the application on your host processor has control over when that OTA or over the air actually happens, right? You have complete control. So like if you have scheduled downtime or whatever, then you have control over when to take that in so it doesn't negatively impact any day-to-day operations.
All right. So that pretty much covers the entire segment that we had here planned with you, Richard. We got through it. We got through it with 10 minutes to spare, which means you have all the time in the world here. 10 minutes worth of that time. We don't need to use it all, but it is time for that shameless plug. So if there is anything you'd like to tell the people watching now, live and later on demand, give it to us. And then anything that Richard says right now, we'll of course make sure, of course, everything as well that was posted in previously in the video or talked about, we'll try to get that in the description. But please take it away, Richard. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So actually, if you think it's really cool and fun what you've seen me do for the last several years, we actually have a couple of developer advocate positions open at AWS, right? For IoT. One is for AWS IoT Greengrass, and the other is, well, it has to do with what we're talking about today, also FreeRTOS, and the AWS IoT Device SDK for embedded C, right? So if you love writing blogs, doing live streams, doing speaking sessions, growing the community, please just reach out to me, or you can just go to jobs.amazon.com and search for these job openings by using those numbers right there.
Are you trying to poach me here, Richard?
I would love to. Come on.
No, that's funny. I feel like this slide was made for me. No.
It is such a fun job, you know.
Yeah, oh, it's amazing.
Like, I'll get to work with all these IoT devices, get to work with so many smart people in the service teams. It's just a huge blast doing advocacy and being an evangelist. So
I love this. I think that this is one of the most awesome calls to action or shameless plugs that we've seen here. I mean, people need jobs. This is a great job opportunity. You're talking about working with one of the biggest and best companies in the world here, and there are 2 open positions. So get cracking. Go apply if you're looking to change career paths or learn some new skills or use the skills you have here. Developer advocacy is huge right now, and I think I'm glad to see that companies are focusing on this. I really am. It means a lot to me that they're focusing on building these communities around developers. I've been working a lot with people who are doing this, so that's awesome. All right, so Richard, thank you very much for joining us. If that's all you have right now, I will do the closing remarks. Is that okay?
Okay. That's totally great. It was so fun. I'm looking forward to next time. It's just, I love coming on this live stream. Innovation Coffee is the best.
You're always welcome. And thank you so much for the kind words. So yeah, Richard, from everyone here at ARM, all of our developers, engineers, everyone up the ladder, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you here. We know your time's very valuable, and thank you for spending it with us. That being said, everyone else that's watching, thank you very much for joining us. And the holidays are coming up. The time becomes more and more valuable as we get into these holidays, though we will have one more episode next week to celebrate these holidays. I'm going to try to get as many people as possible to join in. And what we'll be doing is talking about our Christmas wish lists. So if you are a viewer even, and you like staying in the crowd, or if you want to join us on the call next week, it's going to be a very open, casual discussion about the things that we're looking forward to getting for Christmas. And of course, we want to keep this kind of tech focused, right? So ARM and tech focused. Richard, that being said, if you want to join in next week, you're more than welcome to. We're just going to talk about Christmas wish lists. Yeah, it's the 23rd. Okay. So I imagine it's going to be hard to round up a bunch of people for that. Still, everyone is invited. Yeah. All right. So thank you once again, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It's right below the video. Hit the thumbs up button, not the thumbs down button, the thumbs up button. It really helps us out. We go live every single Thursday, except a couple times a year at 5 p.m. UTC. You can find me here with a featured guest like Richard Elberger, talking about all the cool stuff that's going on in and around ARM technology. So join us next week for our last episode of the year. Christmas wish lists will kickstart things back up in January, and we hope to see you there as well. Y'all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you next time. Innovation Coffee. Richard, once again, thank you so much. See you all next time.